Hi, I'm Lainey Kieschnick with iCEV, and thank you for joining us for the CSI and iCEV session. We are excited to have Robert Stalkey with us today. He is from Shadow Ridge High School in Las Vegas, Nevada. And he's going to give us a little introduction about himself. And thank you for joining us, Robert.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I chose this title using iCEV to facilitate a more thorough forensic science experience. My big thing about teaching is trying to show a hands-on experience as best as possible. And in our CTE programs, I think that's pretty easy to do, because especially crime scene investigation and forensic science is very hands-on. And using an online platform to help with that hands-on experience is I feel beneficial, because it frees up time for us to do the important things. And like I said, who am I? I introduced myself in the opening statement. Also, I want to touch on my background is actually in biological science and anthropology. That's what I went to college for. And I have no formal forensic science experience as far as, being in the field. So I've learned from people, the community members that are in the coroner's office. I've learned from the people that work in the lab. I had to reach out and talk to them. And really, I see it as more of just teaching the content and bringing in people to facilitate the firsthand experience is important. Now, to get to what the title means, as an educator, what is it that we want to focus on? So I kind of want to spin this title as how can we make our curriculum more thorough? All right. And so in doing that, as educators, we have a lot of job responsibilities. And we have to ask ourselves, what is it that we want to focus on in our curriculum? And with that being said, we have responsibilities. We have to grade, we have to set up, we have to do our daily lessons. We have to plan ahead. So we have a lot of stuff that we have to make sure we are done before those kids even show up to sit into that lesson. Okay. And we have to think about, the portions of our lesson we want to spend the majority of our effort in. Do we want to spend time grading? Do we want to spend time developing, or setting up, I should say, do we want to spend most of our time reading, reports that the kids have submitted? I mean, that's a good portion of it, but where can we ease up our time and free up time to do something more? And so that's where I like to call this ourselves lesson plan engineers or architects. I try to create lessons that I see myself kind of like an architect or an engineer when creating these lessons on where do I want the kids to go. And iCEV allows me the free time to be able to create these great lessons and engaging lessons. And it's not about, I can wean off the grading, because a good portion of it can do it for us with that content part. So I ask myself a lot, where does most of the learning take place in our curriculum? And what does that look like, the learning? We all know that students will learn at different times. You might have a kid that starts at first period in the morning, and they're not up yet. And so they don't learn at that particular moment because they're still tired. But they learn, during their fifth period after lunch. And so we want to make the content available to them at any time at their convenience, but they still have to sit in your class and they still have to do the hands-on stuff. So this platform allows me to make it available so they can learn at their convenience in a way. Okay. And then what is it that we feel most important about in our assessment, in assessing, like where do we get most of our data from? And in my head, and it's kind of funny, I just assume all the kids are going to cheat on that test. All the kids are going to cheat or copy each other on that assignment. But the one thing they can't cheat on is showing you how they do something, how to package evidence, for example. And I'll get to more of that in my slideshow. So we can all agree, I think, that the learning by doing approach is not only just feasible within our curriculum with all CTE programs, but it's preferred by not only us because it keeps us more engaged and more energetic, but it also by the students, because the students don't want to sit there and just learn from paper and take notes and then be done with it. They want to do stuff, and especially with crime scene investigation and forensic science, they come into me the first year saying, "Oh, I love CSI." And of course, if you're watching this, you probably know that forensic science isn't, what they do on the TV. That's far from it. And we got to break them of those kind of habits. So as we want our students to master this content, and how we do that is to build experiences, create this emotion within the classroom, and they are more apt to learn and master that content. And also they're just more energetic about showing up and being there and participating. So we want to build on these experiences as the year goes on. We want to get them excited to learn. And I do have to say that forensic science is pretty easy to get them to do that because it is so engaging, and there are so many outside sources that get them energetic about it. Watching the First 48 or watching those crime shows, they're interested. They're naturally interested in it. So a little bit about how iCEV helps me do this. One, there's videos that explain content that are provided, and student notes that are available. So they don't have to just watch the video and then you expect them to retain it, but there's notes that are already templated out, and students can either fill in the blanks or write their own notes, and those can be printed. I've found that that's sometimes beneficial, but I also, in the virtual environment, I teach them how to use something called DocHub to create their own notes as PDF versions. There's also slideshows for the students to follow along in content. So you can download these notes and you can present it to them. You can break it up into little chunks so they don't just get all the notes at once. And activities are also done to enforce content presented. That's already in the curriculum that I like using. I don't use all of them. There's still stuff that I bring into the classroom myself, but it is definitely helpful and beneficial to have activities that are already there for you that at least get you started too as well. The curriculum provides assessment with quizzes, tests, and also interactive activities that can be done in the virtual environment that are then scored. I found it very beneficial, especially it being a type of course that's an elective, to where I'll allow them to take it 2 times and then get the average. Because the one thing that students don't want to do is have a hard time in their elective and it's too hard of a class, and then they just lose interest and they're like, wow, why did I sign up for this? But that's also part of my curriculum as well, is trying to weed out the ones that don't want to put forth the effort. And things aren't really that hard. The students have even told me multiple times they are pretty easy. Now you're going to get the ones that don't pay attention at all and just click on the answers and just be done with it. But it allows for that flexibility once again to do the important things. There's also lab activities that you could follow along with instructor notes that can be set up for that hands-on experience. And then there's a lot of other things that, this presentation could take an hour with all the things that this provides and helps out to alleviate the stresses of doing everything that a teacher has to do. So then we can just focus on that really important stuff. So want to talk about the elephant in the room. And I just talked about briefly of, hey, this is an online class. The kids just go to use iCEV, and it really isn't. And you don't want your students to think of that. You don't want them to think, I just sit on a computer screen learning and just taking assessments. That's furthest away that you really want to spin this type of curriculum. And I've been guilty of it myself, where I had a bad day or whatever, I'm tired, and hey, this is a catch-up day, do your iCEV. And if you don't do it a lot, maybe well, I don't know how many times, but if you don't do it a lot, it doesn't become this online class. Okay. Now, with that being said, we want them to do their jobs before they come to class. And our wishful thinking as educators is, if you assign something, all your students are going to go over the notes the night before so they can become prepared to class. Wishful thinking again, all my students are going to go watch the assigned videos before the lab so they're prepared. They know content, they know vocabulary, or they're at least used to a little bit of it. It's not like we're going to tell them, go do it at home, and then we're going to do the lab when we meet for class. You're, as an educator, especially with high school students, you're going to introduce it a little bit in class, and then the majority of the class is dedicated to doing that hands-on activity. But you want them to do some stuff at home. And wishful thinking, of course, is all of them are going to do it. All my students are going to go prepare the day before to come to class. But in reality, as teachers, we quickly understand that some will read over the notes the night before. Some will watch the assigned videos, and the ones that are really into your program will come to class prepared every single day, and you won't really have to worry about them not knowing what to do. That's the reality. Here's an example of what I do. This is an evidence packaging activity, and I'll just talk about it real briefly of what I've taken from iCEV and then done in class. So in this case, this would be in Forensic Science 1 level, so I'm teaching freshman or sophomore. And what I'll do is I'll present the notes and videos in class, little quick snippets of these things. And then after the notes or video, I'll demonstrate what they'll do. And this is just typical teaching, this is what the procedure would be, a very effective procedure. Then the materials will be out for the students for them to do it themselves. Then you release them to do it, and they look around at other students, their group members. By this time, they'll be able to confirm, hey, are we doing this right? Or no, we're not. And then they come to you and ask you questions, and that's in the perfect world. We all know that some students will do it. There'll be some group members that'll do it while the other ones just sit there and watch and do nothing. But we would like to think that they're trying to master it themselves. And it's an approach that it's known as I do, we do, you do. And what this is, it's to allow them to spend the time in class to learn how to do something. Now, we all want to assess them somehow. And that's where iCEV comes in for me, is I'll have them do the quizzes or the interactive activities at home, or I'll tell them, hey, this week we're doing collection of evidence. I need these things done by the end of by Friday, and then it's going in the grade book. So they'll some of them will wait to the very end. Some of them will do it as the day goes on. Some of them will get done with the activity in class and do it in class, and it's been pretty successful so far. Now, this is just an example of the whole lesson is pretty easy to kind of do, but there's still another component. It's not just we do it in class and you require them to do the assessment or the interactive activities, and then that's it. What I'm going to show you now is through iCEV itself of the last part, the part that I observe. And this is the mastery part. You can have kids that will get A's on the multiple choice. You're going to have kids that will just cheat and copy their buddies. You'll have kids that will just not really care and just click on the questions and the answers and then just submit it so they have a grade at least. So this part, to get them to master it, is where I've taken you is the evidence collection procedures activity that I follow. And here's the videos that they would watch, and there's actually quite a few. It tells you how to collect biological evidence, ballistic evidence, body fluids. It has tutorials on all those. But at the end of this, what I'll do is under the printable section, I like to click on the evidence collection at the scene. And this is the instruction sheet, but essentially you're going to create a crime scene and you're going to put evidence out. And I've done it multiple ways. I've had stations of evidence. I've had a whole room with evidence in it, and I assign students certain sections. And this is the observable part. This is where you can get a group of 2, group of 4, or depending on your class size, maybe individuals, and depending on how you have your class organized, where you can observe them collecting and are they doing it right? And this is just some directions for those that are maybe new to the curriculum or content. And this tells you how to set up a crime scene. You know, I've been doing it for 5 years, so it's relatively easy for me to do. And I already have the stuff that I like to put out. But this is something that you can now assess for mastery instead of those other assessments. Now it's definitely, you know, up to you if you want to go this far and assess this portion, and maybe you just want to do the assessments online and those are good enough, and that's fine too, because like I like to think is it is an elective, and kids don't want to have, you know, that really difficult class. That's an elective. So this was just something that I would take from, and I go the extra mile and I assess their mastery at it. Is some other examples that I like to show. Fingerprint analysis, which is a level 2, forensic science 2 for me. And the lesson is the characteristics of the fingerprint. So it's the very beginning. And this is where kids would take their fingerprint and we would create our own 10 print cards. And we would take a look at the different classifications of fingerprints. I would show the video or notes. I also supplement with notes because I've been doing it for a while. So I have a slideshow attached to this as well. And then the students will identify different characteristics of their own fingerprint. They get a little bit of learning by doing there. But with fingerprinting, there's so much information on this unit. Not only are they going to learn about the fingerprint themselves, they're also going to learn how to dust for fingerprints and process latent fingerprints using different techniques. And depending on your availability and how much you want to do, you know, I have CA at the cyanoacrylate. I will use ninhydrin in the classroom. We use different types of dusting powders. I'll use alternative light sources. So I teach them all these extra techniques. That it is a little extra, like you don't have to do that, but that's why the kids take it. And by the time you get to forensic science 2s, all those kids are engaged. Like in my program, every forensic science 2 student wants to be there. And so it's okay to use these materials. They're not going to screw around with it, because that's a problem that we would have in forensic 1 is you get kids that possibly didn't even sign up for the class in a comprehensive high school. So the point of this portion right here is just saying that there's so much more that that's why it's so important for me with iCEV. The kids can get their content by using the online program and getting scored that way. And then I can spend the time bringing in the materials that are actually used in the field and watching them and demonstrate and have them demonstrate in front of me on what they learn and how they're doing it. It feels pretty cool. Then another one is the autopsy process. This is where I actually use part of iCEV stuff, and then I supplement it with my own. And this is Forensic Science 3. So I'll do another show you here, where I'll go to the autopsy process in the curriculum. And this is now notes, and the notes are really good. It breaks it down in little tiny chunks. You can structure their learning very scaffolding way. I like to talk about that. You know, you just build them up from little to big. And what I would do is I actually use their exact template, performing an autopsy. Okay. And it comes with little cutouts of organs, or the important organs, or all the organs that are actually used in an actual autopsy. So just cutouts. You know, we can't do an actual autopsy in class. You can watch them all day long if you're lucky enough to know the coroner or be able to go into the coroner's office. You might be able to have a tour, but it's difficult. You know, they only allow so many people in. And so we actually will do an autopsy. I follow the instructions exactly. I have kids lay on butcher paper. They do a cutout of their body. And then I use the lid to a lid from the printer boxes, where you buy reams of paper, and that I take that lid, and that's the cavity, the thoracic cavity, where the organs sit. And you have the students place the organs in the appropriate order that comes with for students that aren't aware, it shows them how it's laid out. And then they'll perform the autopsy based on what they learn in the notes, like every step of the way, and they'll document that. Now, I go a little extra. How I do that is I have them actually follow along on an actual autopsy and write up a full autopsy report. So some other bits I use iCEV for is I just learned actually this summer that iCEV content can be integrated into your learning management system, which is super helpful now. So when the kids take their tests or quizzes, it will actually get uploaded into the gradebook. So there's virtually very little entering grades that I have to do. The only grades I will start to enter now are my individual observations. And that shows the mastery. So you can have a student that will get A's and B's on just the multiple choice, but then if they can't do it in class and they're unable to do it, well, now that eliminates that whole cheating. And you can call them out on it in the beginning, and it's about not just calling them out on it, but it's about them taking responsibility for their learning and saying it's not about just doing your work, it's about actually knowing what you're doing. And I found it to be very beneficial and impactful for them. And by the end of their level 3, they know what actually learning is, because these kids want worksheets and how many points are they worth. My biggest pet peeve in class is students telling me, well, I do my work. Well, you're just doing stuff. You're not really mastering any type of content. And so I really work on that portion, because we all know as professionals, it's not about doing work. It's about actually knowing what you're doing and how we get to there. So I feel that's part of our responsibility, is to break them of that, just doing those worksheets. The next thing is, the greatest part too, is career interviews. Especially now with COVID, probably in a lot of districts, I know in ours, we can't have people come in anymore. I used to have the forensic lab personnel come in. I used to have crime scene investigators. I used to have attorneys come in and talk to kids, and that was awesome. But now they're really limiting that. And so there's a career interview portion. And what I did was just put a little script here. It's under you'll find out if you use this, but this career interview portion, it has a lot of real time. Hey, how did you become in this profession? What do you do in this profession? And I found it to be pretty beneficial for students to watch it. I mean, it's not the best. Obviously, having real people come in is ideal, but this is kind of an answer to our particular problem that we're having. And then the last thing that I also use this for is you can actually create your own course assessment. So I've started to use this now with my semester exams. Because their content is in iCEV, I will create my own semester exam and then give that to them. And it eliminates me having to have to write questions, but I can add questions as I see fit. So it's really helped out saving time with these mundane things that we do as teachers, and really allows me to focus on what's really important to assess, and also create a better experience for those students so they're not bored, because these courses that we take, or that they take, they want to be engaged, and they don't want to be bored doing it. So just quickly to wrap up, I use iCEV to facilitate that learning process. I don't use it as an online course. I really steer clear of trying to say those kinds of things. I use it to free up my time in order to create a better experience in the class while they're sitting in those desks. So it allows that hands-on experience for me to really focus on. And it will allow you and myself to really assess what they actually know through observations and interactions with the groups and the individuals. Like I said in the beginning, assume they all cheat and they just skim. They're not really reading the content. They're just trying to answer the questions, try to get them right. And it's especially in a comprehensive high school, a lot of students do that, and they just see it as work. And what I need to do to get that grade. And what we're trying to show them is, life isn't really about that. It's about actually knowing what you're doing. If you want any type of good job, you're going to need to be able to understand what it is that you're doing. With that being said, that's what I have in my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. There's my contact information. I also put a link here to our website, my program website, if you want to check out to see what it's about, what I'm kind of talking about. And I'm open here to feel free to share anything that I've had, or questions or materials. We're, as educators, we're here in this together. And my first 3 years of teaching I had great mentors that said, just steal from others. And it's true. You don't try to reinvent the wheel, use what other people are using, and then you invent it later on when you're more comfortable. So thank you very much. And I hope you learned something.
Some house cleaning that I just got to announce. Don't forget to enter the session completion code below to receive your points of professional development. But Robert, I can't thank you enough for being part of this session. I know I learned a wealth of knowledge, and I know you're open to answering questions. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome.